Just as the Premier League title race enters the final straight, they all go away on an international break. But one thing that doesn't change is that we're back with your fix of Spurs debate and news. This is your e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Tottenham, no one can stop them.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the e-Spurs podcast. Much better fortnight. The last few games have been a huge improvement, and we've seen the team really start to kick on now. It's almost as if they realise, isn't it, that this now is now or never, and been a real impressive performance the last two games. I think we'll all agree. Tonight on a bumper e-Spurs podcast, we'll look back at the Bournemouth and Dortmund games. I'll be putting your social media questions to the panel on all things THFC. Once again, we'll tell you how you can get your hands on an away shirt, this season's away shirt in our latest competition. And if all that wasn't enough, we'll squeeze in a preview of the Liverpool game. Before all of that, let's introduce the three voices that you'll be hearing over the next 45 minutes, giving you their opinion on all things THFC. It's Jason, John, and guest this week is Ian. How you doing, fellas?
All right, mate.
Evening. Just like to say, get well soon to Ricky.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Well said, mate. And if listening and wondering why Ricky isn't on tonight, he's not feeling too well. So we'll all echo those thoughts of John. Get well soon, Rick, and hopefully Rick will be back with us soon. But as I mentioned there, more than capable hand tonight of Ian. Ian, how you doing, buddy? Welcome back.
I'm doing well, thanks, and thank you for inviting me back on. Sad to hear about Ricky, and I echo your comments about getting well soon. He's a larger than life character, and it'd be good to hear his dulcet tones back on the pod next week, hopefully.
Absolutely. No more positive Spurs fan than Rick out there. So great to have Rick back next week. But on with the podcast, guys. Before we crack on with the Spurs debate for this week, the Bournemouth game, don't forget that we put out two podcasts now each and every week. So on Monday, you can catch your regular e-Spurs podcast, usually out on a Monday or Tuesday. And on Thursdays, don't miss our brand new extra time offering featuring the e-Spurs talking point. You can also get your hands, as I mentioned earlier, on this season's away shirt in our latest competition. I think there's about a week left to run on that, so you've still got time to enter. All you have to do is head over to our Twitter or Facebook pages, find the competition post at the top of those pages with the instructions, and it's very, very simple. Follow and retweet on Twitter or share the post and like the page on Facebook. Job done, and you've entered. We're also really pleased to announce that the e-Spurs fan phone is back. You guys have been using that during the week to leave us your opinions. It's basically our very own answer phone message service where you guys can have your say on the e-Spurs podcast or anything THFC. You can call in, leave your message on the latest game, the latest player transfer, the latest injury, or the latest goal, and we'll play them back on the next e-Spurs podcast. All you have to do to leave your message is to give us a call. If you're in the UK, call 07497 148 049. If you're outside the UK, just add a 44 and drop the first O, so it becomes 447 497 148 049. Of course, I'll mention that constantly throughout the podcast, so you guys can leave your message and have your say on the podcast. As far as I know, the only podcast that gives you guys out there a chance to have your say and take part in the podcast in that way. So enjoy it and use it, guys. On with the podcast, and as I mentioned, busy few weeks. We've been off and on the last few weeks. We managed to record last week, but had a few technical problems, or I did, I should say, before that. So we've managed to get back on the air this week, hopefully back on a regular basis now for you. And we're going to talk about the Bournemouth game to start. Let's go to Jace first up. Jace, was that as impressive a first half as we've seen this season, do you think?
Yeah, we were. I mean, to go 1-0 up in 44 seconds is the perfect start. And how strange it was that it was a Bournemouth game again, where of course we were a goal down within a minute in the first game. But no, the speed of our play, the pressing, the tempo that we started at, and we just continued to do that really throughout that first half. And as Eddie Howard said, really impressive performance. Every single player, I thought Sunday was better than his opposition. There was some Harry Kane outstanding performance, brilliant play from Ericsson as well. And I thought, one of the top players on the day as well was Carl Walker, who was really back to his best. And I think, he's had an outstanding run of games now, Carl Walker. Can't remember the last mistake he made, the last time he looked out of position, the last time anybody looked like they were going to get the better of him. So a really impressive performance.
Certainly was. And great compliment, as you mentioned there, from Eddie Howe after the game. We've heard a few times from managers, haven't we, this season, saying similar. John, do you think the first half performance in particular was a sign that the players now know that it's pretty much now or never?
Do you know what? My first thought was when I saw the team sheets, and I don't mean any disrespect to Bournemouth, they've had a great season, but I was just thinking this is a championship team, really, on paper, Yeah. And they could always make it difficult for us, and, as they have done for so many teams, especially recently. But I think it was a game where it's that kind of game where if you're going to have a serious tilt at anything, it's the kind of game you have to win. It's one of those where you go, right, that's got to be a 3-pointer, definitely. So, as Jay said, to come out the blocks as quick as we did, there weren't any doubt really, was there? Even after the first minute, I just felt, totally relaxed straight away. We're going to win this. It's just a case of by how many. Gutted I didn't get my 6-1 still. I'm still waiting for that. But
I'm sure it will come.
It couldn't have been 6-1 because they never had a shot on target, did they? So it was the whole game was really good. Obviously took our foot off the pedal really last half an hour or so. But yeah, to answer your question, I think, the players, they must know now that it's on. We've got nothing else to play for. We've got one game a week. We're going to find out, really what they're made of. And it's just exciting, isn't it? I'm really looking forward to the last few games.
Certainly is, and in particular for me, the speed of the football was so impressive on Sunday. The speed that we attacked at, and it's something we mentioned on the podcast, haven't we, of quite a few times, that we pass the ball around, lovely passing football, but if we just sometimes kick it up that extra gear, it causes so many more problems for the opposition, and we saw that in spades on Sunday. Great football.
Well, I think what I noticed was really evident to me was there was always someone available.
Yeah.
Especially in maybe not last season so much, but the season before, the players under Sherwood just sort of hid, didn't they? They weren't anyone that was willing to make themselves available and take games by the scruff of the neck. But there's 11 brave men out there. They all want the ball. They all show for the ball, and it did show. There was always an outball for every player on Sunday, and it was just, I think the two that played in central midfield, Arter and Sermon, must be absolutely knackered still because they were given the runaround, weren't they? I know they were outnumbered in that department, but it was an amazing performance, really. Everyone, like Jay said, everyone was superb.
Well, yeah, especially, you're talking a team that have just come off the back of 3 wins there, so it makes it even more impressive. And Ian, we're starting, I know you was at the game as John was, and something that's also impressed me is that we're starting to now see a almost telepathic link, aren't we, between Dele Alli and Harry Kane?
Yeah, definitely. The movement of the two of them, and like you said, that telepathy that they seem to have was evident for Kane's second goal, and I just think it's wonderful. I think they touched on it on Match of the Day. It's very rarely that you get that link between players, and it's something that is a joy to see. It was interesting. I picked up a few things where during the game where I think Ali was looking for a pass from Kane, and it didn't come, and he was quite rightly frustrated. But I think that looking at it, and the second goal was a thing of beauty. The ball out from, I think it was from Wimmer to Ali. And it was just, and like Ali's on, and Kane's on his bike straight away. He knows where the ball's going, and the ball gets slid through to him, and he's onto it in a flash, and bang, it's in the bottom corner. And after 16 minutes, we're 2 up. So, I think it's very rare to see that in the modern game, but I'm glad we're seeing the benefits of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely football on Sunday. Jay, is Vertonghen going to be able to get back in this team?
Well, Wimmer's, if you picked a form, Wimmer's done absolutely nothing wrong. He looks composed on the ball all the time. We've not seen one real mistake from him. He's got a perfectly good understanding with Toby. They look a proper pair, don't they? So I can't see I can't see Jan getting back in that easily. But that's what you want. You want proper competition for places. You don't want people to be able to just stroll back into the side. I suppose that my one little doubt over, not so much a doubt over Vimmer, not so much a doubt over Danny Rose, but if you look at the goals we've conceded, I think probably since Christmas time, we've conceded more goals down the left-hand side, particularly since Jan's been out, than we have the other side. And whether that's just Vimmer or Rose being half a yard out of position at times, or not quite having the same understanding as Jan. So we have looked a little bit more vulnerable down the left. But again, that's real nitpicking, and I wouldn't say that's a big fault of Vimmer or a big fault of Danny Rose. But it's worth noting that we have conceded more down that left-hand side.
Yeah, it's an interesting, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, Danny Rose, I know you've mentioned, Jay, we spoke about on here a number of times. Danny Rose had the best season he certainly had, I think. Got to be a shoo-in now that Leighton Baines is injured for the England left-back position, you would think. It's fantastic to have that competition and quality there, isn't it, in the rotation. The midfield, maybe, for me, is still an area we need to get a bit more depth in. We saw in the Europa, it's just not quite there, the midfield, in terms of the depth. It's lovely having the younger players there, but they've got to be good enough. And as much as I love those younger players because they're Spurs through and through, it just shows, doesn't it, when they play those big European games. At the moment, they're certainly not ready. Let's hope time will tell, and they certainly become the players that we hope they are. But at the moment, not quite there. But other than that, it's certainly looking strong. And in terms of moving forward, John, we've got huge game again. They're all huge now, aren't they? Cup finals. What am I saying? It's not going to change now between now and the end of the season, is it? But in terms of Leicester, they don't seem to be slipping up either, do they?
No, they're really beginning to irritate me now. It was, come like around November, December, you think, right, come on, you've had your fun. Time to start falling away, but they haven't. And to be fair, it's as long as we end up first on the last game of the season, it don't matter how long they stay there for me. If I'd rather overtake them when they then don't have a chance to come back. And the fact that we've stayed right on their coattails, we can't have done much more, really, could we? We were saying before earlier in the season where we had that unbeaten stretch, but we'd only picked up about, 15 points or whatever it was from, I don't know how many games, not many, say 10 games, I think it was, where we had, loads of draws. And Jason said at the time, if it was maybe one of the other clubs, although they haven't really put together those kind of runs, not apart from Leicester and us, then you'd be talking about mid-20s in terms of points from 10 games. And that's exactly what we've managed to do. It's not even been like a season-on-season transition. It's been a time of the season where, we were unbeaten, but we were drawing too many. Mistakes have been learnt from, and, we've improved so much. And then we go on another run of 10 games where, all right, we lost one, but then we only lost one. We've drawn one and won 8 of the last 10. So there's not much else we can really do. We're just hoping that Leicester do slip up. But I think most importantly for me is I really want this Champions League qualification to be confirmed in maybe the last 2 or 3 games or 4 games, depending on how long it takes. Play have a little bit more freedom. Maybe that'll happen with Leicester as well. Maybe they'll be so pleased to qualify for that. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm giving up on the league, of course, but I would still be so happy to finish in the top 3. I'd be gutted if we finished any lower than that now. But I think people maybe not lost perspective, because targets change as the season goes by. But I still trying to keep myself grounded by thinking if you'd have offered me this situation in August, I definitely would have took it.
Yeah.
So let's just hope that Leicester do lose a couple and we can stay right up with them. But then we got Man United and Liverpool and then Man United next to. So it don't get any easier for us either, does it?
No, nice easy run there to come going away to Anfield. Then, I mean, the blessing is we've got United at home, and you would think that going, on the last few months' form, you would think that we go into that one certainly as favourites, I would think.
The only thing is, you're talking about we've won twice in the last 4 years, I think it is, at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
And we haven't beaten them at home for 15 years. So you're right, you're right, really. I do tend to agree, and I do think we'll turn them over at home. But when you're looking at the stats like that, it's rather worrying, I must admit. Especially the record at Anfield is like one win since Garth Crooks scored the winner there, I think it is.
Yeah. I noticed another interesting stat during the week was that Leicester, I think, have made the fewest passes, or one of the fewest passes in the league, which was interesting. And watching Leicester, they do tend to hit that long ball up to Vardy quite a lot, don't they? So you can you can see how that happens, that they sometimes bypass the midfield up to Vardy and get him in behind the defenders that way. So that was interesting to note. Certainly complete contrast to us, the amount of passes that we make as a team, completely outpass every side we pretty much play. So it's an interesting one. Ian, is there 2 or 3 sides now in the title race for you?
Yeah, I think definitely Leicester, definitely us, and I can't remember the name of the team that's just below us.
No.
I think they might still be in it, because at the end of the day we're only talking 6 points. I think the other teams, the Manchester teams, West Ham, are probably, hopefully, he says, touching wood, are too far behind now. And I think it's the top 3 for the title, with us to win it on the last day at Newcastle, with us all going out on a bender afterwards. But I genuinely believe it's now a 3-horse race for the title. And as I said, if we can do the deed on the last day of the season, then you will see a lot of grown men with tears in their eyes. So let's keep our fingers crossed, and let's hope that we're the ones that will be able to celebrate.
Yeah, because we've spoken about it so many times on the podcast, you almost become a little bit blasé about it, but you still have to pinch yourself, don't you? Talking about Tottenham going for the title, it's surreal.
It is totally surreal. I think that talking to you before, with Jason and John and Ricky when he's been here, I can't remember a season like this. Even going back to 85, 87, maybe. It's lovely. It's lovely to be a Spurs fan, actually, and go to work and not get ribbed by all the fans that are there from other clubs. Oh, you got beat again,
Yeah.
So yeah, fingers crossed.
Certainly is. And Jay, after the game, Pochettino was talking about Kane and described him as the best striker in the world, or one of the best strikers in the world. Would you concur?
Oh, I'm not so sure he's one of the best strikers in the world yet. But he's certainly amongst the. I think for me, if you could swap me Aguero, I might pick Aguero over him. But other than that, when I compare him to, say, Benteke or Lukaku or people like that, I wouldn't want anyone else other than Harry there. And of course, he has that hidden ingredient, if you like, of that he wants to play for the club he's playing for.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a huge difference. We saw that with Gerrard at Liverpool, didn't we? What difference, and even to a degree Terry at Chelsea, that that just pushes them those extra few yards that you need. I think, if he had that little bit half yard of extra pace, then I think you can put him up amongst the top strikers in the world. But I'm quite happy for him to stay where he is and just make the little bits of improvement that we need him to do. After all, I'm not so sure I want him to be the best one in the world, because Real Madrid didn't come knocking. So I'll settle for him being the best one that we can get.
Yeah, there's always that, isn't there? And I mean, Jay, if you could, just looking at next season, obviously we're going to need another striker to come in. Based on the strikers that you've seen in the Premier League in particular this season, are there any that stand out to you that would come in and do a great job alongside Kane as either a backup or as a player for rotation in there?
Well, I think, to pick one the same as Kane, it's difficult, because Pochettino he's not going to change his system. And as impressive as, say, a Lukaku is, I'm not so sure Lukaku's one that's going to press defenders all over the pitch like in the same way that Harry Kane does. And that's my worry, that I see people saying, "Oh, come on, let's go for a Lukaku," and then you think it's going to cost you, probably £50 million to buy someone who's actually not going to fit in the same way that Pochettino wants. We've already seen how Benteke is struggling at Liverpool, and yet how many people wanted Benteke in the side. So I think, we keep seeing the link with Berahino. I'm still convinced that we'll get him in. But, Kane, to replace Kane is really difficult because of those extra qualities that he brings to the side.
Certainly does. I mean, and as you mentioned there, that the factor of him being a Spurs fan gives him that extra 10% in games, isn't it? You would think. Just fantastic that you've got that passion in there, and certainly his form over the last 2 or 3 games been fantastic. From that goal against Arsenal to now, just been on fire, isn't he? Scoring from all angles. defender's nightmare, you would think, and it's great to see. John, just to finish up on the old title debate for the moment, in terms of the top two, you look at the fixtures that are coming up. We've got Liverpool, Man U, Chelsea. Leicester have also got Chelsea, but not till the very end. Can you see Leicester in particular slipping up? And if so, how many points can you realistically see them dropping between now and the end?
Oh dear! Do you know what? It really is that really is the question that I've been trying to avoid even looking into, because only because I saw Arsenal's fixtures a couple of days ago, and they've got 5 really winnable home games left out of their 8, and I'm thinking, right, I'm quite worried about them again now. I don't even want to look at Leicester's. So, I tell you the truth, I think our running is still quite difficult. I think it'll be a case of, like I said, get Champions League in the bag and then see where we end up, but I really try not to worry about it too much, because, you know, when I was a kid, if we lost, I'd have the hump for a week. You know, nowadays, I try and look at it like there's nothing I can do personally to affect the result or the outcome. You know, just keep going, keep wishing, keep hoping, and I think, you know, that's what we're in such a. It's like uncharted waters for us. I still don't know how to feel. I really don't. You know, there's times where I think, you look at the league table and you're like, I'd probably take it now if we could say, right, we'd finish above Arsenal and qualify for the Champions League. But even that's not guaranteed. You know, I think I've still got one eye looking over my shoulder, to tell you the truth. So, but I would say Leicester would probably have to lose or drop points in probably at least 4 games. Even if they won 3 and drew 4, maybe we'd have to still win the majority of ours, though. So I don't know. The only thing that annoys me a little bit is I think I'd rather be behind a team who've spent a shed load of money, because you can sort of justify it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I think that annoys me slightly, because I suppose you could say the same about us, but it's like Leicester, really, they shouldn't be anywhere near where they are. And the fact that they are, I mean, no, credit to them, you know, I'm not taking anything away. They've obviously had probably the best season in their history, to tell you the truth. And, you know, it's not far off being one of the best in ours if it carries on the way it's going. But I just hope that we don't, you know, that we really do have a go at it, and we don't end up like West Ham, who still do a lot of boys of 86 night every year because they finish 3rd once. You know, I don't want to get to a point where you're celebrating almost success. You know.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, in terms of, the title race, John, you mentioned Leicester there, and that being a bit of, if we was second behind, say, a Man U or a Chelsea, do you think we'd even be thinking about the title now? Would we just be thinking top 4's pretty much guaranteed, brilliant season, let's just, ride the season out?
I think that's it, mate. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it's because, the players don't look like they're feeling any extra pressure because it's a team that's probably catchable. But I think it would probably make things a little bit easier for the fans, you know, if we were like, right, we're definitely not going to catch them, let's just forget about that. But then I don't want that. That's like settling for second best, and it's either go all out and end up well, Ricky's ended up ill because of the football. We're blaming the football on Ricky's demise, and I can't blame him. You know, he's got stuffy in that cupboard and disease spreads. But yeah, so it's the thing is, it's like I said before. I feel like a kid on Christmas Eve, like every day. So, and I have done for weeks and weeks. And it's just this suspense. I just hope it's not a massive anticlimax. But like I said, I'm trying to think just Champions League now, because to play there in our last season at White Hart Lane and have a few more nights at the Lane where we get to hear that Champions League anthem and we're seeing the best players in the world play at our ground, you know, it'd be a fitting end to our time at the Lane. And I just keep thinking that, although it would be nice to have them golden sleeve badges next year, of course.
Certainly would, with the new logo on as it's going to be. Ian, in terms of talking there about Champions League now, I'm going to touch as much wood as I can. Hope that I'm not tempting any fate here, but should we qualify for the Champions League? Do you think we're ready? And if not, what do you think we need to be ready?
Oh, come to me with a killer question. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the Dortmund games, and I know this is going to sound controversial. I'm not sure we've currently got the personnel to be able to effectively compete at those 2 levels. Watching the game at Dortmund away, it was definitely men against boys, and we need to have an injection of quality playing staff. Now, I'm like you. I love the fact that we've got the guys from the academies coming through. there's just a part of me that thinks that could they do it against, you know, a Real Madrid's or even a Dortmund's, should we come up against them again?
Yeah.
I'm going to say it, and I'm going to put it out there that I think we'd need to really invest in our squad to be able to compete in both competitions. And I know I'm probably going to get slaughtered for saying it, but that's how I feel. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. I think you've got to be honest with, you know, what we've got. And as I was having a conversation with the lads during the week after the games, and you have, as much as we love, and we all love nothing more than having a young player come through the system and wearing that shirt with pride. Sometimes, unfortunately, you've got to be slightly ruthless about this. And you've got to think, if we want to improve and make the step up to the next level, are they currently good enough? And unfortunately, you know, we saw against Dortmund, didn't quite have, you know, got a bit of the runaround, didn't they, to be honest? And you're talking Champions League, you're talking another step up again, you know, so you've got to be ruthless sometimes, and you've got to make big decisions.
I felt the same last time we qualified for the Champions League.
Yeah.
And if you think the 11 that started the game when we beat the European champions at home was Kudicini, Hutton, Gallas, Basong, Assou-Ekotto, Lennon, Huddleston, Modric, Bale, Van der Vaart and Crouch. Tom Huddleston was our captain that night. But look at the defence. Hutton and Assou-Ekotto, Basong and Gallas.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So I think it depends, because you've got players that, for those nights, they probably played better than they actually are for those games. We did see the league form did suffer slightly in between, of course, as well. But I'm more confident with this squad and this manager, definitely, than I was last time going into it.
I agree, but going back to that back four, I hate to say this, you know, Gallas, whether we like him or hate him, he was a bit of a winner at other London teams.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. He was what we needed at the time, wasn't he? We needed an experienced centre half, and he fit the bill.
Yeah, I just think that looking at where Dortmund are now, we need to do a lot of work to get to where they are, because I reckon they're about 12 to 18 months ahead of us.
Yeah.
When it comes to the personnel and their playing style.
It's just such a shame we didn't go full strength, because I don't think we really know, do we?
No. And I think you hit the nail on the head at the last pod that maybe you could have swapped the teams around for Dortmund and Villa, but hey ho, we are where we are.
Yeah, I mean, Jay, let's bring you in on this one. Do you think we're far off Champions League, becoming a decent Champions League side?
Well, just on that last point of where John read that team out, whilst I think there's weaker players in that side than we've got nowadays, we also had in that side Van der Vaart, Bale and Modric.
Yeah.
And they'd probably be in the current side. So I think, you know, they kind of offset some of the weaknesses. I think in terms of the general squad, we definitely haven't got the squad to compete on both fronts. And, you know, I've had this argument all week with people about Europa League, saying, you know, talking about the negatives that it brings to the side, and my whole point is those negatives will still be there next year. And you take say Kieran Trippier, who we've all been quite pleased with this year, and then you actually look at the facts and you think Pochettino has only picked him in 5 of the 31 Premier League games, and so he obviously thinks, rightly or wrongly, that Kyle Walker is the better right back at the moment for the Premier League. And if we're to compete in the Premier League next year, and we want to, you know, we certainly want a top 4 place, or I still think we'd have a chance to win it next year as well as this. But if that means we've got to play our best right back in the Premier League, then that makes Kieran Trippier our Champions League fullback. And then is Pochettino going to think, well, hold on, if I didn't trust him in the Premier League games last year, how am I suddenly going to trust him in the Champions League games? And that sounds a little bit harsh on Kieran Trippier, and that's certainly not me criticising him, but it is noticeable that he's only played 5 of the 31, and you will still have those problems next year of say coming into this stage of the season. If we're in the top 4, what are we going to do with the Champions League? And I think to compete on both fronts, you have got to go and find somebody equal to or better than Eric Dyer, equal to or better than Moussa Dembele, equal to or better than Christian Eriksen. And is Ryan Mason equal to or better than Moussa Dembele? He clearly isn't. And so, you know, it is a problem for us. And if we are going to rotate as we need to do it next year, the thing we've got to learn from Dortmund is that you can't rotate too many players from one area of the team. So if you're going to leave Eric Dyer out, you definitely can't leave Moussa Dembele out. If you're going to leave, Toby Alderweireld out, you definitely don't leave Jan Vertonghen out. And you've got to change one or two only with that. I think for rotation, you can't be changing 7 players in a game at all, because that will definitely affect either your league form next year or the Champions League form.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of change, isn't it, for any game? And the frustration for me is that you go through all those months of games out in Azerbaijan, you sit there on a Thursday night, sort of, one eye open, trying to stay awake, watching the game, and then it gets to the stage where it should actually start kicking on a gear, and they put a side out with 7 changes. So it's a little bit deflating, but there will be those out there that say, well, Pochettino's hand was forced by the fact that we're going for the title this season, and who knows, he might yet be proved to have made the right decision. So it's such a difficult one. But as you say, Joe, when you're talking Champions League, you're talking another level. If we're saying, that the likes of Trippier and Davies are going to be possibly our Champions League fullbacks, that in my mind, as harsh as this may sound, and don't get me wrong, they've done a fantastic job, but do you then need two new fullbacks? Do you need 3 midfielders to come in to replace, to better Mason, to better Bentaleb, to better Carroll? And that's not, having a go at these guys, as we said time and time again, but you've just sometimes, unfortunately, got to be realistic about this. And we want to compete in the Champions League. And
I think the thing is there, Andy, you're talking about all the, the younger players especially.
Yeah.
Without our involvement in the Europa League, how far back further behind in their development would they be?
Do you not loan them out, John, as the likes of Redknapp seem to do?
But the only player that I can think of that Redknapp loaned out and then brought back and actually end up with a future is Kyle Walker.
Yeah.
Whereas with a lot of the current team, although Pochettino wasn't there obviously at the start of Harry Kane's career and Mason and the rest, they were given first team experience in the group stages of the Europa League. And if it wasn't for the group stage of the Europa League last year, Harry Kane might not have had a sniff. We was obviously struggling up front with Adebayor and Soldado. They weren't doing it. But, for him to then come into that Villa game when he scored that free kick, Kane, and he might not have even been trusted to come on in that situation without the Europa League games.
Yeah.
So I think they have served a purpose.
I see your point, mate. The only point I would make in reply to that is that obviously that's Europa League. Is the Champions League the right tournament to be experimenting with players like Tom Carroll when you've got a huge game away at, let's say, the Bernabeu, and there's arguably, a $250,000, $500,000 up for stake for every single game you play? Is that the right tournament to be playing Tom Carroll? And again, I don't want to sound like I'm having a go at Tom Carroll, because he's done a very good job for us, but I don't think long term, and you've got to be realistic about this, I don't think long term he's going to be an answer in our midfield, is he?
The only thing is then I think that he becomes the kind of player that you give a run out to in the League Cup or the FA Cup.
Yeah.
I still think that players like that will have a role to play. It will probably just be reduced on what they've been able to do this season. And I think now we've only got 7 games to go and they're all important Premier League games. We will see, I believe, Danny Rose and Kyle Walker starting all of the last games. I don't think we'll see that kind of rotation before. And I think he was just trying to keep players happy because, as we said before, Ricky made the point ages ago with Ben Davies when he had that run in the team. He didn't do anything bad enough to be dropped.
No.
But now we don't have to. Well, I'm not saying we don't have to keep him happy, but now there's only 7 games to go, and it really is about doing what's right for the club. It's not about doing what's right for the individual player. I think now we'll see. The team that started, excuse me, on Sunday, bar Jan Vertonghen, I expect that to be the side that that starts every game if they're all available, because that is our strongest 11.
Yeah.
I think, and that stats will probably back me up there. That's the starting 11. If you obviously with Wimmer and Vertonghen have been how they've been because of the injury to Vertonghen, but that is the players in front of them and either side of the centre half pairing there, they will probably stay as they are now, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We will see now, and I think come the summer, I hope we don't have a massive overhaul because I don't think we need one. But like you were saying there, the gap between certain players in the same position is obviously there is a gulf. And come September the 1st this year when the new season starts, hopefully there'll be a few more players in there that that would close that gap, you know, on the player that they'd come in to replace.
Yeah, certainly, mate. It's a really good point you make, and we are going to need investment in the summer. Let's hope that it doesn't work out like the last summer before Champions League football. What we do is we'll go across the board, just to finish this segment on the podcast tonight. We'll go across the board, and I'm just going to ask each of the lads how many they think we need to bring in the summer to be a decent Champions League. I don't think any of us are, think we're going to win the Champions League next season, but to be a decent Champions League side, how many we need to bring in during the summer. Let's ask Ian first.
I'm going to go with 4.
Okay, so 4. John?
Yeah, exactly the same. I was just thinking 4. We need, obviously, Fazio hasn't got a future at Spurs, so we're dealing with 3 centre-backs in the squad at the minute, so we need a 4th centre-back. We're going to need another one to play with Dembele and Dyer. I think we need one further forward who can play the 3 positions behind a striker, and obviously we need a striker. So, yeah, definitely at least 4, I'd say.
So 4 across the board so far. Jay?
I'll go one more than that. I'll go 5 if we're to genuinely compete in both competitions. But, it's also a level, isn't it, of saying what is general competition or generally competing in the Champions League? Because, let's be honest, we're certainly not likely to go into it next year and be considered amongst one of the clubs that can win it, are we?
No.
So, if we're talking about competing in it, i.e. getting through the group stage and maybe winning that first knockout round. I mean, if I said to you now we'll reach the quarterfinals, I think we'd all probably take that as a pretty good effort back into it again, because then you're going to come up with Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, Juve, and Dortmund again. And I think, if we're honest, would be very hard for us to bridge the gap to that level at the moment. So I think, to go through the group and certainly at least have a go at that first knockout round, I'd say we need 4 or 5 for sure.
It's going to be interesting to find out how it all pans out, isn't it? And still a long way to go. Still a lot of ground to be run, as they say. So that's the really good debate, by the way. Really enjoyed that one on the Champions League and Europa League and the difference between the two and the level our players are at the moment. And it seems to be quite popular on Twitter as well at the moment. We see a lot of comment about whether or not we're currently good enough to be competing in the Champions League. So on to the segment of the show where we get your questions on all things Spurs for the panel. And once again, you've been great, guys. You've sent in your questions on THFC, and we've got loads for the lads tonight. Let's go let's go to John. John, you've got a question from Josh Fitter, at JoshFitter95. He says, I heard Mourinho is willing to spend 60 million on Harry Kane. Do you think Levy would sell, or is he indispensable?
I don't think he'd sell. I don't think there's no doubt whatsoever. I think to be in the Champions League financially, there'd be absolutely no need to. As taking out is the club, to a lot of people, and I think it would just cause such it'd be riots, wouldn't it, down the road? I don't think Levy would dare do it, but I also wouldn't need to do it financially. It's not like before where, like with the Bale transfer, you can't be turning down that kind of money. But with Harry, it's certainly different. Jose can go whistle, as far as I'm concerned.
Jose can do one, absolutely. And you could argue, I mean, why would he want to go to United at the moment, especially if they're only scrapping it out for that, fifth place? Surely it's a downgrade going to United at the moment. Josh, thanks for the question. On to the next one for Jay. This is from Dan Perry at Dan T. Perry. He asks, how many Spurs players deserve to start for England at the Euros, bearing in mind there are 5 in the current squad?
I can't see a better central midfield player than Dele Alli at the moment. I can't see a better English striker than Kane. I can't see 2 better fullbacks than Walker and Rose.
Yeah.
I think they should all be in the side and they should all be started. And I think, England would benefit from having them all playing well, all going into the tournament confident with a big understanding between them all. So for me, they should all be in there.
Yeah, absolutely. They've all done brilliantly, haven't they? The England lads in squad. We've certainly got the spine of both the Belgian and the England squads in there, which is great to see on the international front. It's just nail-biting time when it comes to that international break, especially at this time of the year, hoping that they all come back fit and healthy, isn't it? But last question tonight from Harry Sharalambus, another friend of the show. He's at PrimeSpur 1992. This one's for Ian. He asked, is there a better striker in the Premier League than Harry Kane?
No, I don't think there is. And that's not just based on the fact that he's got 21 goals. I think that if you look at all the other strikers and what they bring to their team, I think Harry brings more to our team than any other striker does to theirs. There's the defensive side. There's the fact that he actually leads the line. He can hold the ball up. He can score all sorts of goals. And I think that, other strikers perhaps are better at, say, pace or finishing or heading. But outside of it, I think Harry's the all-round striker.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's Spurs. So, as we said earlier, puts that extra 10% on his game, doesn't it? Fantastic. And, I mean, the one for me, Jason mentioned him earlier, that he's just behind is Lukaku at the moment. I think he's having a fantastic season, but I think Kane's certainly ahead of even him. Aguero's had a poor season, isn't he, in by his standards, but Kane's just on fire. And to do it 2 seasons in a row, fantastic, just absolutely fantastic.
One season wonder. They call him.
2 season wonder now, Ian.
That's what I'm going to say. It's going to be a 2 season wonder. That's the next criticism.
That's it.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Just hope he loses the mask.
I've got a bit of a theory about that mask. I reckon he wore it, to get over the injury, and I think he did well against the Arsenal. And I'm wondering whether he's keeping it now as a lucky charm, because I broke my nose playing football, and I was back the next week without a mask. So I reckon he's on fire, mate. I reckon he's just using that as a lucky charm.
Well, maybe we've got it for a long time to come, this mask. He'll still be wearing it when he's 35 playing for Spurs.
Yeah.
His other thing is he's got to improve his goal scoring when he doesn't wear the home kit. Because I noticed those pictures that people have been putting up with all his goals on there. 20 of the 21 have been in the home kit. So, and of course he wore the away kit at Swansea when he put it in his own net. So, that's the other thing he's got to do. He's got to make sure he ups his ratio in the away kit and the third kit.
It's fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And if you need the mask, keep it on. As long as you're scoring, none of us mind. Brilliant stuff, as always, guys. Thanks for sending in those questions. And once again, we'll do the same for next week. So get in touch with us via the social media and the Facebook. That's at @E_Spurs on Twitter, and on Facebook it's /e-Spurs page, all one word. And don't forget, of course, to give us a call if you want to get involved in anything to do with the podcast tonight or the most recent games. If you want to have your say and have them played back on the podcast, give us a call on 07497 148 049. If you're outside the UK, get involved too, guys. It's 447 497 148 049 for the fan phone. Okay, on to the final segment of this week's e-Spurs podcast, which is, of course, to preview, although it's still a fair way away. Let's have a look at the Liverpool game, shall we? Jay, Liverpool have been a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde side this season, even under Klopp. So what side are we going to face at Anfield, do you think?
Well, they're strange, aren't they? Because their better performances have come against what you would call the better clubs.
Yeah.
They murdered City in both the league games. They play very well up there against Arsenal. They've just done Manchester United over the 2 legs. So, and I think he has got them at times pressing high up the pitch as he did in his Dortmund games. And as we've seen, we actually have had difficulties ourselves facing that first half at West Ham and the 2 Dortmund games when we were hemmed in. But I think we may get a little bit of benefit from them being involved still in the Europa on the Thursday night after that game. And of course, particularly now they've got Dortmund, that full well that Jurgen Klopp himself will definitely want to take his best side into those games. So I'm quite hopeful that we can go there. I know John said we've only had a couple of wins, but I can certainly remember one a couple of years ago where Rafa put it in the top corner with a sweet little volley. And we have one there in cup ties as well. So I'm quite hopeful we'll go there and pick up the 3 point.
Well, they showed on Sunday how vulnerable they can be when the pressure gets to them. They were 2-0 up. Mignolet saved the penalty, and they still went on to lose the game, even though they were 2-0 up with 25 minutes to go. So, I mean, we seen that. Like, I would say we're stronger than they are defensively and offensively as well. And I think, if we're talking about Dembele and Dyer against like Joe Allen, we should be all right, to tell you the truth. I think it's with Anfield. I think it's a little bit still a mental thing for opposition players going there. I don't think obviously they're not great. Where are they? Like, they're mid-table. So it's not a game that I'm worried about. In terms of, I don't fear the opposition. I think, I'm not obviously writing Liverpool off, but it'll be a tough game. But yeah, like Jay said, I'll back us to go there and come back with something. And I think if we can have a real go at them, they are shaky defensively, Liverpool. There's players all across their back line, and especially their goalkeeper, who drop so many clangers that, with that under pressure constantly, that you're forcing errors, and they do make mistakes often. So, I think we'll be all right. I can see us coming away with at least a point, but hopefully it'll be all three.
Yeah, I think at this stage of the season, I do. And, any team that has let a 2-goal lead slip away from home, I think can be got at. I don't think it's Klopp's team that he would want. So I think that, as we've said, we've got those cup finals, those 7 cup finals to go. We've got a good clear week between fixtures. I just think we go up there and as John said, we give it a good go and hope we come away with the 3 points.
Tottenham, no one can stop them.